Hey team, happy Wednesday. It's April 29th, and we are going to work on today proportional relationships in a graph form. Before we dive into that, I just want to remind you of some of the expectations and also like why those expectations exist. Every day you have one math assignment to complete. It includes a video, which is mandatory to watch, video questions so that I know who's watching the video and how well, and one independent practice assignment and one skill builder. I've noticed that there are some scholars who sometimes don't watch the video thoroughly, and I have been calling families to see what's going on, and I just want to reset that expectation that we're watching the whole video. Why is that a requirement? That's a requirement because if we want to be really successful, if we want our accuracy to improve, if we want our brains to grow, if we want to be really ready for 8th grade, then we've got to do like the learning part, the new knowledge or the reminders part. If we are just completing the independent practice, you can learn a little bit doing that, but you're not going to learn the amount that you need to. So instead of attending class for an hour 5 times a week, you do need to watch these videos for about 20 to 30 minutes per day, okay? Just as a reminder, check out this line graph I'm sure you already have. On my x-axis is effort. This is a nice review because we're gonna look at some graphs today. So my x-axis is effort. Where do I see a lot of effort? Do I see it here or here? Yep, I see a lot of effort over here. So what do you notice happens to success when a lot of effort is put in? Yes, success is higher, right? When we put in a little bit of effort, we can have a little bit of success, but where we really need to be to get ourselves ready for 8th grade is up here. And so if you're kind of floating down here, what you can do is just put in a little bit more effort. Make sure you have notes that you are keeping track of. Make sure that you watch the whole video and you're working carefully, and that's going to help you to be the most successful. Okay, so that's the expectation. That's why it's there. So many of us are crushing it. Yesterday, 7th grade, we had in the 80s of completion on our math assignments. So that's really excellent. So many of us are putting in that high effort and seeing a ton of success. So really nice work. I want to go ahead and dive into today's work. Please set up your notes. Today is April 29th. I can't believe it. It is gonna be May really soon. Holy cow. Today we're representing proportional relationships in a graph. Go ahead and add that to your notes so that when you go to take the quiz on Thursday that you have, you know where to look for a question about a graph. Awesome. We've seen this anchor chart before, but I just want to remind you there are the 3 ways to find the constant of proportionality, which we care a lot about because it's the rate that tells us how 2 units or 2 quantities vary together. We can make a 1 row to find it. We can identify the within ratio relationship to find that COP, or we can do y divided by x. Okay, hopefully you've tried all 3 of those as you've worked independently. For some questions, I find that one is better than the other, or like faster or easier. For some, any of them would be equally as easy. So hopefully you've had some practice with all of those, and maybe I'll try a new one today. Where we're going to shift now is we're not just identifying the COP from a table, and we're not just writing an equation. We are also looking at relationships on a graph and finding the COP or interpreting a point or writing an equation. So we're taking that graph and doing those things we've already been practicing this week, okay? From a graph, and I'll show you this in just a second, I think personally that it's easiest to identify one point and do y divided by x to find the COP. If it says, what's the COP? I look for 1 point and I do y divided by x, okay? Or my y-axis variable divided by x-axis. Sometimes it's like h and t, and I do still the y-axis divided by x-axis, right? You could also set up your own ratio table and plug in points from the table and still look for these within ratio relationships, or make a 1 row within that table. All of that works too. It just is a few more steps, but sometimes it can be helpful. Okay, so make sure you have those notes set up. High effort equals high success. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, take a look. This one has a table and a graph. I want to challenge you to use whichever of these models you think would help you best answer this question. So the question is, what is the constant of proportionality? The table and the graph are showing the same relationship. So you'll see this point, 2, 3, plotted here, 2, 3. Okay, go ahead and take 1 minute. Let me get a timer for you. Maybe. There we go. Go ahead and take 1 minute to answer this question. Go. So we're halfway through our time. You should be choosing one of those 3 strategies from the Google Slides presentation to find the constant of proportionality. If you've already used the table, try looking at the graph to find it. If you've already used the graph, try looking back at the table to confirm your answer. Awesome. There is our time 7th grade. Let's take a look at some work. I went full Jackie. I wrote what the question is asking for. For these kinds of questions today, I think that is so helpful in just a tiny bit of effort that will help me with a lot of success. So what is the constant of proportionality is what I'm being asked. I also wrote down some thinking with my strategy. I chose to do y divided by x. You could have used the ratio table, copied it down and found that within ratio relationship, or created a 1 row with the 1 in the x column. I did y divided by x with this ordered pair, 2, 3. You can find that from the graph or the table. When I did that division, 3 divided by 2, notice how I did y first, divided by x second. I got 1.5. That is answer choice A. That is answer choice A. Okay. Give yourself a star on your paper if you got number 1 correct. Nicely done. Let's do question 2. All right, similar question. Question 2 says, what is the constant of proportionality? You have 1 minute. I can't wait to see your work. Go. Start with one of these ordered pairs, label it XY, and then see if you can find the constant of proportionality. All right, let's review. I love this question because there are no numbers in it, only in the graph, right? So you need to find the important information from the graph. Love that, really spicy. Looking at my x-axis and my y-axis, I don't have any labels here. It's just asking me for a COP. So I'm going to take my y divided by my x, okay? Here's question 2. I used this ordered pair 6, 3. I labeled it XY. I know always the ordered pairs are XY, but it's really helpful to write it down because I've got to change the order around, and sometimes it's super easy for our brains to get tricked. Our brains really want to do 6 divided by 3, but 6 divided by 3 gets us 2, which is not the constant of proportionality that we're looking for in this question. We always want to do the y first. So having that label helps me as I'm writing this next step. Y divided by x equals 0.5 or 1/2. Give yourself a big star if you got it. If you got 2, what was the mistake you made? If you didn't get 2, think about what was the mistake made if you got 2, if someone got 2. Yeah, if you got 2, you did 6 divided by 3. Your brain tricked you. You've got to make sure, one thing I'd recommend you do is label x and y, and that helps you make sure you get that in the correct order. Remember, the constant of proportionality is the factor that takes us from x to y, from x to, yeah, so if I want to go from x to y, from 6 to 3, I need to multiply by 1/2, not 2. Cool, let's try another one. Actually, before we try another one, let me type in my answer here. I want you to go to your Google form. Oops, I'm not in preview mode. Oh, yes, I am. Here it is. In question 2, I want you to just enter 0.5. Awesome. So thinking about effort and success, here's where I want to make sure that you are going back as you're watching the video and filling these in. That way you don't answer incorrectly. When you get 3 out of 3 on these video questions, I can tell that you are watching super carefully and putting in a ton of effort. Let's move on. Question 3. Go ahead and set up your paper. Question 3. The graph below shows the number of calories burned while riding a bicycle. Okay, at what rate are calories burned by bike riding? You've got 1 minute. Time starts now. All right. If you need more time, please pause the video here and take that time. Okay, so I mentioned at the beginning of this video that sometimes it's helpful just to take 1 point from the graph and do y divided by x. Sometimes it's helpful to set up a ratio table. For me, in this problem, I think it makes the most sense to set up a ratio table for myself. That's because the question is not asking for what's the COP. It's asking for how many calories per minute, right? And so I see per minute. I know that means 1 minute. I know that means, yes. So I'm thinking already I can take a ratio from the table, from the graph, put it in the table, and then find my 1 row with a 1 in the minute column, okay? There are other ways you can solve this, but for me, that thought process makes the most sense. I definitely don't want to accidentally find how many minutes per calorie. That's going to be a distractor answer choice, which means it'll be there, but it's incorrect, right? All right, so take a look at my thinking, and I want you to compare it with yours. There we are. So I know that I was looking at the graph and I saw that 10 minutes on the bike would lead to 40 calories being burned, okay? If you didn't get that point, chances are you got another one, but I just want to show you a little bit more closely what I mean. So like this point and this point, they don't fall right on the grid line. So I just looked here really closely. Make this a little bigger. I just looked really closely and I saw none of them were falling on the grid line. That one looks close, but I don't think so. This one looks for sure, right? This, there's no dot here, but there's a point definitely here. I would say also here is a good ordered pair to use, and that's it. So I used this one. and that is halfway between 8 and 12. Halfway between 8 and 12 is 10, and I'm on 40. So I know that 10 minutes of exercise on the bike would be 40 calories burned, right? Okay, so that's where I got this from. Then I found my one row, that's my COP. I also can tell that 4 calories per 1 minute is my correct answer choice. My answer is C. Okay. Can you pause the video here if you need to update your paper? Awesome. Let's move on to question. Oh, let's not move on. Let's enter our answer in the Google form. Question 3 is C, 4 calories per minute. All right, we're going to move on. Question 4 is next. Go ahead and set up on your paper. All right, I remember this question. The graph shows the relationship between the pounds of cheese bought at a deli and the total cost in dollars for the cheese. Sweet. We're going to select all statements about the graph that are true. All right, so I've got 4 statements here. Zoom out a little bit. I just want to get as much of the graph as I can while also showing the question. Okay, so I've got weight and I've got total cost. There are 4 statements. On your paper, I want to see A, true or not true, why? B, true or not true, why? Pay really careful attention to what the x-axis represents and what the y-axis represents. All right, I'm going to give us a minute and a half for this question. Go. You might notice that you need to do your explanation before you decide if it's true or not true. I'm just noticing that as I'm working. Please feel free to do that. Put your explanation first and then decide, is that true or false? Last 10 seconds. All right, I'm actually going to give you 10 bonus seconds. All right, let's come back together. If you need more time, please pause the video. Here we go. Looking at this graph, the clue when I see something like this and I'm looking at represented and I'm looking at these different ordered pairs, always they're going to try to trick you and switch the meaning of the x and y axis. So you need to know that in an ordered pair, the x comes first and the y comes second. You also need to know that always the x-axis, the x coordinate should represent weight in pounds and the y coordinate should represent the total cost, right? So A says the 0.00 shows the cost is $0 for 0 pounds of cheese. What do we think? True? False? True, absolutely. The 0.00 is on the graph and it does represent 0 on my x-axis and 0 on my y-axis. A is true. All right, let's see if you can get the next 3 correct in a row. B, $0.25 for 1 pound of cheese is represented by the point 0.25, comma, 1. Okay. I want to show my thinking for this question. What do you think? True? False? I bet we have some mixed here. Okay. All right, take a look. B is false. I bet not true. That's because here's the point it's talking about. 0.25 is my x coordinate, and so 0.25 must mean 0.25 pounds, not $0.25. My y coordinate is 1, which means $1, not 1 pound. So B said 1 pound of cheese. That's false. They mixed up the variables. That's what I was adding in with my 10 bonus seconds. So number 4, let's go ahead and select it is false. I'm sorry, for B, let's select as false. C, the point 0.52 shows that 0.5 pounds of cheese costs $2. Think about your x coordinate and your y coordinate. True or false? Nice, you got true. And D, the 0.14 shows the cost is $1 for 4 pounds of cheese. Think about what x represents and what y represents. True or false? This one is false. It is not true. Since the x coordinate is 1, I know that the x is 1 pound equals $4, but they wrote in the question $1 for 4 pounds. So they mixed up their variables. This one is not true. Wow, you get 2 stars on your paper if you got all of those correct in a row. What a nice, careful job you did. All right, we're going to move on to question 5. Go ahead and set up your paper. Okay. Now we're on to our last skill of this particular lesson. We're going to write an equation based on this graph. Okay, the graph below shows the relationship between the number of tickets sold for a music concert and the amount of money collected from the sale of the tickets. Let's take 1 minute. Let's see if you can put it all together, what we did today and what we did yesterday, all in one question. Whoa, not 10 minutes. Ready, go. Last 15 seconds. Go ahead and select the equation that you think matches the graph. All right. So first things first, if I'm going to write an equation, the first thing that I need to do is find the COP. In order to find the COP from a graph, I can do a lot of things. I decided to pick an ordered pair from the graph and do y divided by x. You could also set up your ratio table, right? I see this ordered pair 5, 15 right here. It does fall on the grid lines. Actually, there's a lot of nice ordered pairs here you could have chosen. So I see, let me make this full screen actually. Yep, my ordered pair 5, 15, I'm just going to do the y divided by the x is 3. If you mixed that up the last time, did you get it right this time? I hope so. Nice work. The constant of proportionality is 3. So if I'm going to write an equation in this form, y equals kx, that's what we worked on yesterday, I'm going to plug in my COP for 3. I noticed that x and y, though, were not in my answer choices. So I swapped those out for the variable that was on the x-axis and the variable that was on the y-axis. How do I know which variable is on the x-axis and the y-axis? I know that the x-axis is tickets sold, and tickets sold is represented by T. I know that the y-axis is money collected, and money collected is represented with the variable C. Okay, A is the correct answer. Put a star on your paper if you got number 5 correct. I can't wait to see what you do on your independent practice today. Your independent practice is 4 questions. Be really careful as you're working. so that you can get in the green, 4 out of 4, okay? Here's your question of the day. The question of the day is, how can you find the constant of proportionality? Okay, there are all the answers you need on here. So I'm going to say the question one more time, and then I want you to pause the video and type that in. How can you find the constant of proportionality? Pause here and answer that question. All right, so you should have typed in your Google form the answer to the question, how do you find the constant of proportionality? There were 3 ways on my slide. You can write any of them. I'm going to go ahead and write in do y divided by x. That's my favorite way from a graph, so that's what I typed in. But anything on that slide that describes how to find the COP will be marked correct. Okay? All right, just a heads up, there's a new question here. Did you watch the entire video and answer the questions above correctly? Please note, if you aren't doing that or you're not doing it accurately, then I'll just follow up and call to make sure I can support and answer any questions you might have. So you've made it this far, go ahead and click yes and continue on to your independent practice. Good luck to you. Office hours. Be nice to your family. See you later.